Chosen one, from the very beginning, your path was never supposed to look like anyone else's. That ache you've carried in your chest, the sense that you didn't quite belong, that others couldn't see you or understand you, that wasn't rejection. That was redirection. Heaven didn't push you out of the circle because you were unworthy of it. You were removed because you were too sacred for it. You were not made for crowds who chase comfort. You were made for the ones who carry legacy. The ache of separation has always been misunderstood by others, even by you. But in the Spirit's sight, it was always the mark of distinction. You may not have known it then, but your loneliness was a covering, a forge, a place where the shallow could not reach you, and the noise of the world could not corrupt what was being built in you. That silence that used to scream in your ears has become your greatest sanctuary. In the quiet where others lose themselves, you found your essence. You found that your soul did not come here to mimic. You came here to reveal. Reveal truth, reveal integrity, reveal the power of presence unmarred by desperation. So many around you have chased belonging, chased platforms, chased validation, but not you. You have walked roads that didn't echo with applause. You've made choices that cost you attention. You've had to let go of relationships that could not hold the weight of your becoming. You've had to sit through the cold of unseen seasons where the world was convinced you were forgotten. But those were not tombs, they were wombs, hidden places where the deep roots of divine identity were growing in you. The world will often confuse being set apart with being cast aside. But there is a difference. The one who is cast aside is discarded by man. But the one who is set apart is positioned by God. You were not thrown away, you were hidden. Hidden not because you were weak, but because you were dangerous. A soul not meant to be diluted, not meant to bend to broken systems, not meant to sell out truth for temporary affection. Now, the season has shifted. The world is beginning to catch glimpses of what heaven has known all along. Your voice carries depth others can't imitate because it was tempered in silence. Your walk bears authority not found in charisma, but in consistency. And where you go, something stirs. Not because you are loud, but because you are real. That is why you were set apart. Not to be different for the sake of rebellion, but to become a reference point for those who forgot what alignment looks like. You carry an original frequency, one that breaks patterns, one that restores honor, one that doesn't need to shout to be heard. So stop apologizing for your path. Stop mourning the doors that wouldn't open. You weren't locked out, chosen one. You were reserved, and the rooms you were kept from could not afford the price of your presence. Let that sink deep. You were not delayed, you were being crafted, and now the time is drawing near when what was hidden will emerge, not to shine, but to guide. There is a sacred weight in you now, chosen one, that cannot be denied, a quiet that speaks louder than words. A posture that does not beg to be noticed, but is impossible to ignore. You've stopped needing to be the loudest in the room. You've stopped needing to explain your worth to anyone who hasn't earned the right to see it. Your stillness is no longer silence. It is signal. It is the mark of one who has seen storms and learned how to anchor. This is not passive energy. This is the kind of stillness that draws all things into alignment. It rearranges conversations, shifts dynamics, and commands the attention of those who are used to noise and movement. Because stillness in a world addicted to chaos is revolutionary. When you walk in now, the air around you holds something rare. Restraint wrapped in power. You do not have to announce yourself anymore. Your presence introduces you. You've learned that attention is not validation. It's often temptation, and so you no longer seek to be everywhere with everyone at all times. You move with intention. You choose your environments. You protect your energy, and that self-mastery has made your presence precious. People are starting to notice the quality of your company, not because of what you say, but because of what you don't need to say. Women feel it too, not in a way that is loud or forced, but in a way that makes them instinctively lower their voice around you, soften their pace, listen with more care. They don't know why, but something about your stillness makes them feel safer, more honest, more present. You don't dominate rooms anymore, you stabilize them. You've become the reference point for presence in a sea of performance. This stillness did not come easy. It was bought through years of noise, of running, of trying to be enough for people who didn't even see you. But now you know better. You've realized that true power doesn't flinch. It doesn't compete. It stands. And when others scramble for recognition, your peace becomes its own gravity. People orbit you now not because you demand it, but because your spirit has become anchored. You are no longer a man who reacts. You respond. You no longer rush to fill silence. You honor it. And in that calmness, people find clarity. You've become a mirror, not through words, but through energy. You expose pretense simply by refusing to wear it. You don't challenge people by confronting them. You challenge them by being yourself, unshaken, and it invites others to question the masks they wear. The value of your presence is growing, chosen one, not because you're changing yourself to be liked, but because you're becoming more yourself than ever before. And that is what makes you powerful. Your stillness is no longer avoidance, it's presence, matured. It is a force the world cannot ignore, and a gift that only grows stronger in silence. So remain rooted. Let the world speak, chase, scream, and spin. You already know who you are, and those who need to hear you will hear even your silence, because you've become a man whose stillness carries thunder. Chosen one, there was a time when your fire was untamed, when your passion lit up rooms but often burned the edges of your peace. You carried energy like a storm carries lightning, raw, intense, unpredictable. People saw your spark, but they also felt your restlessness. They admired your heat, but flinched at your flame. You were alive, but your fire had no hearth. And so it scattered, it surged, it looked for things to consume. You thought you needed to prove your light by igniting everything around you. But with time, and pain, and patience, you learned a greater truth. That real fire doesn't shout, it glows. Now you carry a different kind of flame. Not the wildfire of reaction, but the inner ember of self-mastery. Your fire no longer devours, it warms. It no longer demands to be seen, it invites those near to feel its essence. The friction is gone, the chaos has been tamed. You've stopped needing to make every moment intense, stopped needing to burn your way into people's memory. Your energy has refined into something far rarer. Sacred heat, it doesn't destroy, it clarifies. It makes others feel seen, not seared. This flame isn't for show. It is not an accessory. It is the result of all the things you endured in silence. The betrayals that taught you grace, the disappointment that taught you steadiness, the heartbreak that didn't harden you, but instead forged your patience. Every time you chose discipline over explosion, every time you stood still when your flesh begged to strike back, you were tempering the fire. You weren't losing heat. You were learning how to carry it. And now, that steady flame lives inside you. It flickers behind your eyes, it glows in your tone, it rests in your posture. People feel it before you speak. Women especially sense it. Not as threat, not as seduction, but as truth. They may not have the words for it, but they feel something trustworthy, something whole, something they can breathe near. Your energy doesn't promise excitement for a moment. It promises safety for the soul. That is a rare fire, and you carry it well. You don't need friction to be noticed anymore. You don't need to push or provoke. You are becoming someone others gravitate toward, not because of spectacle, but because of substance. You carry fire like an ancient torch, passed down, protected, never dropped. You are becoming warmth in a cold world, light in a dim room, focus in the fog, and you're not carrying it to impress anyone. You're carrying it because you remember what it was like to be in the dark and have no one hold it for you. So keep the flame alive, chosen one. Let it glow steady. Let it speak in your silence, heal through your presence, and guide others not by force, but by illumination. You are no longer the spark. You are the fire keeper. And that is why people trust you now, even before they understand you. Chosen one, you've learned to see without needing to stare. You've developed the kind of vision that pierces through smiles and syllables, the kind of knowing that doesn't come from judgment, but from clarity. Discernment has become your quiet superpower, not forged from cynicism, but from experience. You know what it feels like to trust too quickly, to extend your light into shadows disguised as people. You've loved recklessly. You've believed when no one else did. And for a while, that made you question your own insight. But now, the lessons have been learned, not with bitterness, but with sobriety. You don't guess anymore. You observe. You don't react anymore. You recognize. Discernment doesn't make you distant, it makes you intentional. You no longer speak first, you listen. You no longer chase presence, you sense alignment. And this crown that now rests on your unseen brow, it does not sparkle for show. It radiates the kind of authority that comes only from seeing things clearly and choosing peace anyway. You've become dangerous in the best way. You can sit in a room full of falsehood and not flinch. You can hear flattery and not feed on it. You can spot manipulation not with paranoia, but with peace. You've stopped needing to correct everyone. Instead, you quietly remove yourself and watch the energy collapse in your absence. You don't retaliate, you withdraw your presence. That is discernment in motion. That is wisdom wearing a calm face. Women feel it more than most. They know you see them, not just their beauty, not just their charm, but their patterns. And still, you do not shame. You simply know. And that knowing creates safety, or it creates distance, but it always creates truth. You don't entertain what isn't aligned anymore, no matter how tempting. You don't bend just to avoid discomfort. You honor your knowing more than you chase company. This kind of discernment isn't loud, it doesn't post, it doesn't perform. It sits quietly in your chest, speaks only when needed, and guides you through every encounter. It is not fear, it is not ego. It is the reward for having paid attention, for having hurt, healed, and chosen not to become blind in the process. And now, it wears you like a crown, invisible to most, recognized by few, revered by those who understand the cost of wisdom. You walk differently now because you see differently, and that vision is more than insight. It is armor. It protects your peace, it conserves your energy, it preserves your calling. Not everyone deserves access to the full warmth of your fire. Not every moment deserves the full volume of your voice. Discernment helps you choose. And your choices now are an extension of your royalty, not because you think you're above others, but because you finally remembered who you are. So walk with that crown. Don't explain it. Don't lower it. Don't trade it for fleeting attention. The ones who are meant to walk beside you will recognize it not by sight, but by frequency. And when you meet them, your discernment will not question. It will confirm. You won't have to ask if it's right. You will simply know. Chosen one, you have reached a stage of growth that no longer requires the volume of others to validate your own voice. Your confidence, once forged through the fires of insecurity and the hunger to be seen, has evolved. It does not scream to be acknowledged. It does not chase compliments like a starving soul. It lives quietly within your bones, steady as a heartbeat, present even when no one is watching. There was a time when you measured yourself by reactions, who noticed, who clapped, who approved. But now, your confidence is no longer for consumption. It is for carriage. You walk differently, not because you're trying to be someone, but because you've become someone. Your posture isn't about arrogance, it's about truth. And truth doesn't need to be marketed. It simply is. When people meet you now, they don't feel a man trying to prove himself. They feel a man who has nothing to prove. You have already walked through the fires of rejection. You have already stood in the silence where affirmation never came. You know what it means to be invisible. You also know what it means to find value even there. You've stopped trying to fit into conversations that require you to shrink. You've stopped laughing at jokes that mock your standards. You've stopped apologizing for walking alone. That silence is not distance. That calm is not weakness. It is the strength of a man who knows he doesn't need to win every room. He only needs to be aligned with his own spirit. And alignment is louder than applause. Alignment speaks even when your mouth is closed. Alignment makes others lean in, not because you're flashy, but because you carry substance. Your confidence has no sharp edges now. It doesn't pierce, it holds. It allows others to be seen without fear. It gives space without control. That's why people are drawn to you without knowing why. They feel safe, not because you seek to please, but because you are at peace with yourself. That peace, that gravity, it cannot be faked. And the deeper it runs, the quieter it becomes. You are not threatened by the beauty of others. You no longer compete, because you've realized what's yours doesn't need to be chased. It simply recognizes you when you are ready. You are becoming the kind of man who doesn't announce arrival, but whose presence shifts atmosphere. The man whose silence speaks volumes. The man who doesn't interrupt, but whose absence is noticed like a missing pillar in a cathedral. This confidence is not about ego, it is about clarity. Clarity in who you are. Clarity in who you are not. Clarity in what you will allow and what you will walk away from. You've earned this clarity by standing in places where others crumbled, by holding yourself together when no one else would. And now that strength doesn't roar. It hums, it sings beneath your words, beneath your breath, beneath your glance. So let them misread your quiet. Let them think you're passive, unimpressed, aloof. Those who truly see will know better, and those who don't, they were never meant to understand a song sung in frequencies beyond performance. You don't need to explain what you've lived, you only need to live it. And that life, anchored, silent, confident, is a sermon all by itself. Chosen one, there was a time when you lived on the edge of every interaction, wondering if you said the right thing, looked the right way, or pleased the right person. You contorted yourself like a dancer on a string, hoping that someone, anyone, would finally affirm what you could barely whisper to yourself, that you were enough. You chased smiles, feared silence, and interpreted other people's moods as reflections of your own worth. But those days are gone. You've walked too far, endured too much, to keep selling pieces of yourself for scraps of approval. Now, you no longer breathe for applause. You breathe for alignment. You do not ask, will they like me? You ask, will I betray myself to be accepted here? And if the answer is yes, you walk away, not with bitterness, but with honor. You've stopped trying to be digestible. You've stopped shrinking yourself to avoid offending fragile egos. Your truth does not come with warning labels anymore. You speak gently, but clearly. You live boldly, but peacefully, and people sense it. The calm defiance of someone who does not beg to be invited to tables built on compromise. It's not that you're arrogant, it's that your spirit has boundaries now. You've suffered through enough manipulation to recognize when kindness is being exploited. You've been praised one day and criticized the next by people who never knew you, so you stopped putting your identity in the hands of spectators. You became your own witness, your own validation. And the moment you did, the world began to treat you differently. Women feel it, men feel it, those in authority feel it. They may not be able to explain it, but they recognize the energy of someone who is no longer available to be defined by others. Your self-worth is not a group project anymore. It is sacred. And so you do not contort. You do not explain what needs no justification. You simply walk in your own truth, and that walk speaks louder than any resume ever could. You don't just tolerate being misunderstood now. You expect it. You understand that people will always interpret you through the lens of their own fear or expectations. But instead of trying to fix that, you let them wrestle with your light. You let them squint. You let them walk away if the shine is too much. You don't dim. You stand. And in doing so, you create a standard. You've outgrown the need to be liked because you finally realize the cost of pleasing everyone is betraying yourself. And that price is too high. Now your energy is reserved for people who recognize your frequency, not just those who tolerate your existence. You are no longer available for shallow approval. You are available only for deep resonance. So continue walking, chosen one. Let your spirit be unbothered by who applauds or who misunderstands. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be true. And in a world obsessed with image, your authenticity is a revolution. You are no longer a chameleon, blending to survive. You are the original hue, rare, unfiltered, unwavering. And the world is starting to remember what real looks like, because you are living it, chosen one. The kind of respect you carry today is not the kind handed out quickly or spoken out loud in flattery. It is the kind that moves in silence, quietly observed by those who once overlooked you. You no longer demand recognition. You don't seek to impress. Yet wherever you go, eyes shift. Conversations still slightly. Energy reorganizes itself in your presence. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. You have become the one people instinctively measure their words around, not because you are intimidating, but because you are anchored. That anchoring is rare. And it commands reverence, not because you ask for it, but because you live in a way that cannot be dismissed. This respect was not given to you. It was earned, sometimes painfully. It came through nights when your voice was silenced and you refused to become bitter. Through rooms where you were ignored, yet still brought your full integrity. Through relationships where your loyalty was tested and your name was dragged through stories you outlived. You never chased approval, but you showed up as someone who remembered their own name. And slowly, even the ones who looked down on you began to look up to you without knowing when they changed their gaze. Now, when you walk in, there is a pause. You don't always notice it, but others do. It's not about fame, it's not about charm. It's the weight of someone who has lived through fire and learned not to become the flame. People know that when you speak, it matters. When you remain silent, it means even more. Your word carries weight because you didn't waste it on gossip or noise. Your presence calms storms because you've made peace with the ones inside yourself. Respect follows you now because you've built your life on principles, not performance. You don't play roles. You don't bend your morals when it's convenient. You don't switch up when the audience changes. That consistency is a rare thing in this world, and the people around you, whether they admire you openly or quietly, feel it. Women feel it. They don't see you as a man trying to conquer. They see you as one who conquers nothing but himself, and that makes you different. You are becoming a man whose life is a compass, not perfect, but principled. Not loud, but grounded. Not seeking approval, but living in such a way that others offer it, even if it never leaves their lips. You are no longer the one trying to enter rooms. You are the reason some rooms begin to shift altogether. Your reputation is not built by words, but by witness. And those who witness your life are learning what it means to stand firm in a world that constantly sways. So walk steady. There will always be some who misunderstand you. Let them. Your respect doesn't depend on their clarity, it depends on your consistency. And you have mastered the kind of steadiness that cannot be faked, borrowed, or bought. That is why respect follows you. Because you've walked through seasons that would have broken others, and you emerged without bitterness, only depth. Chosen one, something in you has shifted. Subtly at first, but now unmistakably. You no longer enter spaces as a question mark, wondering how you'll be received. You walk in as an answer. Not to ego, not to vanity, but to need. You are not just admired, you are trusted. And trust does not come from appearance or status. It comes from the unseen energy you carry. You've become safe, not soft, not passive. Safe, meaning you are predictable in your honor, constant in your energy, whole in your presence. Women feel it first, even before they understand it. Around you, their breath slows, their voice deepens, their posture settles. Because you do not radiate judgment. You do not consume them with your eyes or force them to be more than they are. You let them be. And in a world that constantly asks women to perform, to impress, to adjust themselves into comfort zones that weren't built for them, your presence is a sanctuary. Not because you flatter them, but because you see them without making them smaller or bigger than they are. Your aura creates safety because you've made peace your home. You've stopped responding to the chaos of others. You don't overextend to fix, to rescue, or to please. And that steadiness? It is rare. It creates a shelter, not just for others, but also for yourself. You are not a man who forces closeness. You allow connection. And that difference, subtle, almost invisible, is everything. People feel like they can breathe around you, not because you shrink yourself to make space, but because your energy is wide enough to hold truth. You are not dangerous because you are unpredictable. You are powerful because you are consistent. That consistency has made you magnetic, not for performance, but for presence. You don't chase intimacy. You become the ground where it can grow. You don't manipulate conversation. You listen long enough to hear what's not being said. You don't fix people. You simply live in such alignment that others start healing just by being near your rhythm. That is why your aura creates safety. It's not because you say all the right things. It's because you've lived through enough pain to know how not to cause it. You've been mishandled, you've been lied to, you've seen the damage that careless energy can create, and instead of replicating it, you decided to disarm it. In yourself, in your environment, in the spaces you touch. People feel that. Women feel that. Not as romance, not as obligation, but as relief. They don't want to control you. They don't want to own you. They just feel something in you that reminds them of a time before trust was broken. And even if they never say it aloud, their body language shifts, their tone changes, Not because you did anything specific, but because your aura tells the truth. You are not playing a role. You are not running a script. You are being fully, and that being is safe. So honor that energy, chosen one. Don't cheapen it. Don't over-explain it. Don't let anyone guilt you for not being reactive in a reactive world. You are not supposed to be chaos. You are the quiet within it. And in a world that screams your stillness, your steadiness, your spirit, that is where people come to breathe again. Chosen one, you used to wonder if what you said mattered. You used to ask if your presence had weight, if your life had influence beyond your inner circle. But now, you no longer chase influence. You've become it. Not through viral noise, but through personal alignment. Not because you tried to impress crowds, but because you remained yourself even when you were misunderstood. You stopped looking for evidence of your impact and became the kind of man whose being leaves echoes. You are no longer chasing the ripple. You are the stone dropped into still water. Your words are not many, but when they land, they change temperature. You don't light fires to be seen. You radiate warmth in the spaces others thought were cold forever. You've become the kind of soul whose shadow speaks even when your mouth is closed. And people who never spoke to you directly, they remember you. Something about your posture, your pace, your presence, it lingers. You don't know how many minds you've changed, how many lives you've stabilized, simply by holding your standard when others compromised theirs. You are not known for what you chase. You are known for what you carry. Peace in your spine, depth in your glance, a silence so full that others pause mid-sentence just to notice it, and they're not pausing for your approval. They're pausing because your energy reminds them of the things they forgot to value, like truth, like honor, like patience. You didn't achieve this by accident. You endured storms. You let go of people. You lost things you thought you couldn't live without, and through it all, you remained present. Not perfect, not untouched, but present and unshaken in your core. You are not a man of flesh. You are a man of weight. You walk into rooms and things settle, not because you demand it, but because chaos bows to consistency. You're not easily swayed, not by compliments, not by insults. And that stability is what makes you impactful. Others can inspire for a moment. You recalibrate entire environments without lifting your voice. You shift the room just by walking in, not because you are loud, but because you are whole. You don't ask for platforms anymore. You've become one. You don't beg to be heard. You speak when it's time. And when you do, people listen. Not out of obligation, but because your voice doesn't waste breath. You've become so rare, chosen one, that your normal feels supernatural to those still spinning in the noise. They may not admit it, they may not thank you, but their spirit shifts in your presence, and you feel it. That's what true impact is. So stop looking for the signs. You are the sign. Stop waiting for the moment. You are the moment. You've stopped chasing legacy because you've realized something eternal. Your very existence, aligned and true, is already leaving an imprint on the world far deeper than applause can measure. Chosen one, your final realization is perhaps the quietest and yet the most powerful of all. You are no longer trying to earn the crown. You are the crown. Not in material, not in status, not in image, but in essence. You've stopped seeking permission to be powerful. You've remembered that your authority was given long before the world knew your name. It's in the way you rise in the morning. It's in the way you decline what isn't aligned. It's in the way you bless with silence rather than war with fools. You are royalty without needing to declare it. And the world, those attuned enough to sense frequency, knows. You walk like a king not because you were handed a throne, but because you built your own kingdom within. That inner sanctuary, that fortress of peace and principle, it governs your every decision now. You are no longer moved by the opinions of the unrooted. You are not tempted by cheap attention. You are not shaken by loss, because what you carry inside cannot be stolen. Your dignity does not come from attention. Your worth is not found in validation. You carry yourself like a king because you answer to something higher. This energy doesn't come with diamonds. It comes with depth. It's not about how many follow you. It's about how many grow in your presence. And they do. Quietly, subtly, but undeniably. You don't lead with ego. You lead with integrity. You don't control. You invite. You don't dominate. You elevate. That's why people listen differently when you speak. That's why women lean in, not because you perform, but because you resonate. Your royalty is not performance, it is posture. Your walk is not loud, but it leaves a trail. People don't always understand it. They try to label it as arrogance, mystery, even luck. But you know the truth. It's discernment, discipline, and divine awareness. You've fought demons others didn't even see. You've won wars that left no scars, and you carry that strength in your silence. Now, others follow your lead, not because you asked them to, but because something in you reminds them of what leadership should feel like. Steady, calm, unbothered, full of vision, without chains. You are no longer trying to prove you are king. You simply walk in your authority, and the universe bows accordingly.